I'll be taking over the slides from here just as soon as I get access to it. I want to thank everybody that's attending. Most of our slides are related to this introduction of SureTax, CCH, Walter Kluwer's telecom tax rating engine that is now fully adopted by Rev.io, and it is a engine that we've been working with for over 5 years. We're very excited about it. We've been working in the background to support both Rev.io and CCH SureTax in this deployment, and we'll be talking further about that. I think I have control now. Am I right, Olivia?
Yes, you should have control now.
Great. So GSA has been around. You've had our introduction. I'm trying to click on the slide. Okay, there we go. So I'm the CEO of the company, and I'll be covering some of the items that you see in our top line agenda. We're going to be going over Rev.io and SureTax, tax granularity to pay off for your bottom line, and special rules adoption through SureTax that makes it easier for you to manage the changing dynamics of your business. We're going to be going over common concepts of carrier cost recovery, as well as 911 recovery methods. Joe Solana is going to give detail on both traffic study methods and unbundling. And then Samantha will be, who heads up our exemption management and carrier audit practice, will be finishing up the presentation. So the top 5 benefits of SureTax and the SureTax engine over table data, which has been a technology that's been around for decades but is fast disappearing, is really in the area of tax granularity as one of our top benefits. It allows our customers to fine-tune the taxability down to the component level. We'll be talking about strategies that we use for unbundling. It is most common that companies provide some sort of bundled product. That's where they combine things like software, phone stations, managed services, as well as telecommunication. And the difference in taxation is a key benefit of using SureTax. Also, with a tax engine like SureTax, it saves time in ongoing administration through the use of an administrative tool that we deploy for our customers when we have an engagement in SureTax, and certainly something that our customers use from time to time to directly control changes in product offerings, as well as changes in the components that make up bundles. The real-time updates made through the engine are tied to a tax policy, and this is something that you don't get with table structure. Tax policy is becoming very important, especially now that the states have gone further in their efforts to audit. And tax policy and recovery of actual calculations is a key element when GSA is hired to provide audit support, both for our customers and customers of our competitors. Specialized tax treatment for exemptions. This is an area that we're finding is very lucrative for our customers, and it's an area that we've spent the last 3 years building out. Samantha will talk about exemptions in being able to reduce the cost from your underlying carriers, as well as extending specialized tax rules to your customers when they deserve it. Double taxation between carriers can be eliminated through GSA's cost tracker. The reason I bring this up in conjunction with SureTax is we have harmonized our tax reporting from underlying carriers' bill audits, and these are done automated through cost tracker, and synchronizing that with exemption forms and exemption logic that we deployed in your SureTax engine. What's important about this is synchronizing your books and records so that you as a company feel very confident that your business practices are working in your favor, and the bottom line is not being affected by bleed out of costs that you're not tracking. I don't know if the slide moved yet. I've clicked on it. Okay, so GSA at a top level. GSA is widely recognized as one of the leading experts in tax optimization for telecommunications. We're based in Atlanta, just a few miles north of Rev.io, and we have 15 years experience in auditing the business rules around billing systems and the switch for carriers, as well as tax content providers. GSA is affiliated with all three major tax content providers for telecom. This, of course, represents CCH SureTax. And it also represents some of the other systems that have been around for a while, Avalara and Vertex. GSA is a top telecom compliance outsource company with over 250 active clients. We do everything for these clients all the way through to handling their entire regulatory and tax affairs as a full outsourcer. GSA is the oldest and largest affiliate of CCH SureTax. Just a couple of announcements. In January, Revio announced that GSA would be their selected partner for their migrations of their allocation rules from CCH's ZipCom tax tables to SureTax. We are currently underway with several large Revio customers to redesign their tax and regulatory policies and synchronize their policies with their actual performance to regulatory affairs. GSA launched 2 new products over the last couple of years, and this goes part and parcel with our whole suite of automated systems designed all around telecommunications, tax, and regulatory affairs. We have a product suite called RVO, which stands for Regulatory Back Office. And in that is a fully automated tax reporting and remittance system, notice management, project management for expanding carriers. And the most recent 2, which go together, are RVO Cert Tracker, which is a repository for exemption forms that you as a carrier may have to store and manage and adopt as exemption rules for your customers. These customers could be tax-exempt end users, or they could be resellers. And so GSA has a full suite of solutions, research tools, as well as document storage and management procedures for managing certificates of exemption. Our second product, which is in beta, is a SaaS application called Cost Tracker. And this application is designed along with our service bureau services to receive your underlying carrier bills and run them immediately through billing logic rules to capture any tax or regulatory fee that may occur in that bill, no matter how extensive that bill is. We have customers that have 800 pages of billing, both detailed and summarized, and we capture the taxes that apply, and if our customer is already exempted, we immediately defend their exemption. If they have moved into a new jurisdiction, then we apply for license and then defend their exemption. We'll be talking about some of the recoveries that that have resulted in our business practice. So tax granularity as a payoff. In the past, carriers had to create sometimes thousands of different products just to apply one specific unique rule that is sold to perhaps one specific unique customer. Many of you may still have a very large breadth, a breadth of products that are really the same product with some unique rule applied. And many of them just have either a different price point or a different name. Well, with SureTax, price point for a product, including bundled products, is not a differentiator that we have to manage for. Price is something that goes along with the rating logic but the product itself is really either a single component or a series of components in a bundle. And so you no longer have to create multiple variations of the same bundle or unique product just to get special treatment. That can be done inside the SureTax engine by an administrator like GSA, or if properly trained, someone in your own company. So now that we don't have to manage multiple derivatives of the same product based on price, you don't have to manage components like voicemail, call waiting, or old antiquated products like party line or maintenance or special support if they're bundled within the product. We have customers coming to us on a daily basis saying they broke out something just because they needed to treat it differently, and the tax content or the provider that supports them couldn't handle it any other way. Well, with GSA and SureTax, we can properly treat a taxable event inside the bundle without you having to do any extra work. And what's great about this is it really lends itself to better customer experience on the billing. Direct control of taxability. As I mentioned, many of our customers will interact with the SureTax engine through the administrative tools directly. Oftentimes, they'll collaborate with us inside that administrative tool. All of this happens outside of the BSS OSS platform. Prior to that, and using the tax tables, any special rules base had to go through custom development in many cases with the billing systems support team. And so this gives us more flexibility to make changes, test changes, and not have to worry about development time cycles. And as I mentioned down below, if price change or discounts are added, the underlying bundle or product needs no other administration. A quick note about the resources that are backing the SureTax engine. SureTax has 27 devoted research staff who scour all the state, federal, and even the local jurisdictional rules. They have individuals who are focused on the changes of those rules and adopting those rules, date stamped to the adoption of a citation or a law. And so none of us have to do that work. No longer do you have to go into a table and update the USF guidance calculation for that quarter. That's all done under the hood. And if any special allowances are applied to a carrier type, predominantly we talk about these allowances. When we talk about allowances, we're talking about a relief from regulatory responsibility. And these are currently felt with non-interconnected VoIP and IoT business models. As these changes are made at the jurisdictions, perhaps Wisconsin wants to tax internet access, which they've attempted to do. If that is adopted and there is a regulatory responsibility and a liability, SureTax picks it up, adopts it in the rule base. So if we have rated a product as an IoT or a non-interconnected VoIP product, that rule base immediately goes into effect without GSA or the customer having to address it. Specialized needs are handled inline. When I talk about inline, some of you I've seen on the list have been at some of my conferences before. And what GSA strives to do is get rid of the off-process administration of books and records. So what we don't want companies to do is change the results of Rev.io's billing or SureTax rating or the tax engine's rating, because that's your books and records in the event of a defensive act. And so our goal is to get rid of all those off-process Excel spreadsheets or Access databases and really put everything in line with your policy adopted by the tax engine and implement it all the way through to regulatory affairs response. So in the past, models like removing taxes was done manually and outside the tax engine, or in between you and your filer by sending a flat file, and the creation of these rules outside the process were very faulty. And there's really hardly any way to track it without forensic audit. So if you need special customer treatment, if you're selling to hospitals, schools, and libraries, if you're selling to credit unions, which are banking institutions with special exemptions, then that logic can actually be passed by us or by you right through the SureTax API. And that way, the billing is kept intact. You'll never have to go back and defend or produce a credit that otherwise would have been granted automated through the API. And if you need to apply jurisdictional discounts or reduction methods, some of these which will be talked about, like the allocation model we talked about next, then those too can be applied right into your rating so that you don't have to reverse that out before you file your 499. And if you've ever gone out of safe harbor guidance for the liability, especially related to USF, and you've attempted to do something like a traffic study in a manual process without using the tax engine's ability to put that in policy, then you may know already how hard it is to remember what you did. So now I'm going to pass this off to Joe Solana, who's our COO, president, and founder. He'll be talking to you not just about MVNOs, but also all carrier types with regard to carrier recovery. Joe?
Thank you, Matthew. So carrier recoveries, we'll be discussing over the next few slides the different types of carrier recovery fees. This slide is mentioning that you have carrier recovery fees that MVNOs can take advantage of. One of the things we're going to talk about is you should be cautious on how you're using those recovery fees and how they're presented. We'll talk a little bit about recovery fees and their taxation or lack thereof tax. We'll talk about some truth in billing laws and how those apply to the presentation of recovery fees. So one of the more complicated recovery fees is the 911 recovery fee. So we'll start off by talking about the fact that this really isn't a government tax. What this is a pass-through that comes from your underlying carrier as a recovery charge or a 911 setup fee or somewhere along those lines, or service fee. And basically what your underlying carrier is doing is charging you to register your customer's DID with the local PSAP. And what basically that means is that because of the nomadic nature of wireless and VoIP calling, you have to physically register an address for that DID. They charge you a fee, they pass along a fee. It could be something as simple as $1.50 for each one that they set up, or it could be a recurring charge or a one-time charge. So you, as a carrier, have the ability to pass that fee on to your customers as well. And you can do this as a straight pass-through, as simply charging a $1.50 fee. If you're charged $1.50, you can actually mark it up to include the administrative cost of you having to bill it through your biller or manage that particular setup with the underlying carrier, the PSAP.
Joe, why are recovery fees so important to carriers?
Well, the main reason why they're important for carriers is that most carriers today, VoIP providers and wireless providers specifically, are essentially resellers of someone else's service. So therefore, they're having to absorb costs from their underlying carriers. Recovery fees give the carrier the opportunity to recover some of those costs without having to actually embed it into their price. So their seat charge or their monthly MRC can still stay competitive while attaching a separate recovery fee as a separate line.
We often find that companies coming to us for regulatory affairs are hesitant to charge recovery fees. Are these widely adopted by the marketplace?
Recovery fees are widely adopted in the marketplace. They're actually more prevalent than building these costs into your revenue, your MRC, or your seat charges. So definitely, and, one of our advantages as a provider dealing with hundreds of clients we're able to do a lot of market research and provide advice based on what we see other carriers doing in the marketplace.
And does SureTax rating help in any way with regard to recovery fees, Joe?
Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but the flexibility afforded from SureTax as a rating engine allows those recovery fees to be created and managed very easily within their system. So here's some specific examples of two other carrier recovery fees that you as a carrier can apply to your customers. The first one is a carrier recovery fee. And by the way, these nomenclatures are 100% adjustable within Rev.io and SureTax. However you want to call it, you can call it, but these are the terms that we advise our clients on a regular basis to use and what you see in the industry. So a carrier recovery fee is simply your ability to recover certain costs for remaining compliant. So as you're utilizing our services for compliance, you're able to recover some of those costs. You can use to recover regulatory fees, licensing fees, and registration fees. The second one is a federal regulatory fee, and this is used, and this is actually unique to SureTax. This particular regulatory fee allows you to recover fees that are very, very small fees. So things that you wouldn't want to put a 2-cent charge or a 1-cent charge or a half-a-cent charge on an invoice, and also to recover fees that statutorily you are not allowed to present on an invoice and recover. So in SureTax, the regulatory fee covers 3 components: federal TRS, NAMPA, and LNP. The last 2 are the ones that are very small charges, and the federal TRS is the one that statutorily you're not allowed to present and recover. But in SureTax, you have an automatic federal regulatory fee, which allows you to recover the cost of those.
So regulatory recovery fees not only allow you to better administer your billing, but they also result in greater profitability for the customers because you're recouping cost to you as the carrier for providing the service.
Absolutely. And
Joe, we actually have several customers that properly implementing recovery fees are actually finding a way to almost make regulatory response and responsibility, including filing the taxes, a zero-cost event for them on a monthly basis, thanks to Revio and SureTax.
Absolutely, and the flexibility of both the platforms. And we certainly spend a lot of time with our customers helping them to determine what those regulatory recovery fees will be by looking at all of their costs. The second type of allocation or optimization methodology you would want to use is the traffic study. So quite simply, a traffic study is the ability for a carrier to determine the jurisdictional representation of its traffic. And that can be done by simply looking at the intra, inter, and international traffic, or it can be, is even more detailed, looking at the intra, LATA, inter-LATA traffic as well.
For most customers that contact me as head of business development, I find that this subject really requires a back step. Most carriers who've been around for a year or two have heard the term safe harbor. The safe harbor is a guidance calculation based on inter versus intrastate communications, right? Boiling it down. And everybody says, well, I'm taking advantage of safe harbor. But you know what I always say? Safe harbor is only safe for the federal government because they've determined that that's an acceptable high bar mark on what they would accept for a carrier who doesn't have the documentation in order to do a better job of reducing their costs.
That's correct. And in fact, the traffic study as a component of optimization is the component which yields us the largest savings for our clients. And especially those that are using the Revio platform and the SureTax engine, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility to enter the traffic study information. But just a few facts about the traffic studies. So obviously, it's a jurisdictional representation of your traffic. We recommend to our clients that you provide at least 12 months of supporting call detail records in a summarized format, of course. We don't want all the detail. We want network descriptions so that we can be able to support with USAC that you're able to actually obtain that information in a good method. And then we want to be able to have all the details behind that so that we can be sure that we have all the books and records in line to support that. Now we say 12 months is the optimal sampling, but if we're starting out with a client, we'll start with a quarter and then just continue to build it as we go along. But again, this one, and we're going to talk some more about some of the other optimization methods, is the one that will yield most carriers the largest benefit. So I touched a little bit already on the traffic study support, but one of the things that we do as a firm that represents hundreds of clients that are doing these types of traffic studies, we help establish what that methodology should be. And because we're able to see what's going on with the clients that we have in place today, along with clients that we keep abreast of in the industry, we're able to help benchmark that. We're able to see the results of our methodologies because we have already presented those to USAC and the FCC for other clients, and they have been tested as an ad hoc test with the jurisdictions, but also been tested in audit as well. Then finally, what we do with our clients is when we have all that set up in Revio and in SureTax, we're going to be sure that it's implemented correctly. And one of the advantages that we provide, thanks to SureTax, is that we're able to run testing on those optimizations in our own tax lab to provide the clients, our clients, with the results to support what the optimization is producing and be sure that everyone's in the right frame of mind and agreeing that it's operating correctly.
You know, one of the common actions that happen, Samantha, when we bring on a new customer is we optimize them as they come in. We build their new rules of allocation and traffic study, and then we implement them in the SureTax engine built by Rev.io. What results in that is a lower tax rate against those services on billing that customers then determine, our customers, which are carriers, determine whether or not they want to beef up their regulatory recovery fee so that it is a cost-neutral migration, but the regulatory recovery fees are dropping to the bottom line. I think that's something that should be emphasized, don't you, Samantha?
I totally agree with you, Matt, and I love that you brought that point up because I was actually just working on that matter when I left my desk with a new carrier. And we were going through those scenarios of testing within the lab, deciding how they compare to industry competition for bill values for recovery fees.
Right.
So obviously with any kind of a methodology that's going to be saving you a lot of money through tax optimization, there are complexities to that. One of the advantages of the flexibility of Rev.io and SureTax, as well as the knowledge that GSA brings to the table, we're able to weed through those complexities and get you set up correctly and efficiently and in an audit-proof manner. Some of these items here that you see on this slide are where some of those complexities lies. Multiple lines of business, meaning you have maybe you're a wireless provider and a VoIP provider. How is that handled from a traffic study perspective and presented on the bill and presented on your filing? How do we get your origination from your CDR if you're a wireless carrier? Because obviously the nomadic nature of wireless makes it a little bit difficult to do. We evaluate your safe harbor percentages versus your traffic studies when you're participating in some of the aggregator type programs, such as the AT&T Apex program. And we're also able to look at multiple traffic studies for each of those types of services and help you establish those and set those parameters. So these are things that, you know, obviously we don't recommend that you try to accomplish on your own and that you find competent help to do that. So the biggest piece of the optimization process, besides traffic study and the recovery fees of the unbundling process, this is a very parochial example of an unbundling for a wireless MRC. Basically, we're splitting it up between talk, text, and data. And the reason we're doing that is because, obviously, each one of those components has a different and variant taxation, from no taxation all the way to fully taxed. The percentages you see are examples. Every carrier's percentages are going to be a little bit different. So one of the things that's critical is determining what those percentages are going to be. The first comment you see there is how do you support the allocation. So we support two methodologies, again, and these methodologies have been tested ad hoc with the jurisdictions.
Joe, I think we lost you there.
Call in 562.
Well, you want to call in?
No, I don't want to
Oh,
press
we can hear you now.
it. Okay.
Okay. All right. We had there was a network issue. Okay.
We think the Russians maybe hacked it and cut us off. I was about to say something important. So going back to this slide on the unbundling. So from a unbundling perspective, we want to break the components of the bundle down to three pieces. But more importantly, what we're able to provide to you is the ability to support that through either a fair market value or a cost valuation. And we'll help you build all of the back office support for that. We'll help you apply that across your bundle, no matter how many services you offer in the bundle. Clearly most carriers, whether they're VoIP or wireless, have more than just three components of their bundles. So we get all that set up and we get that implemented in the billing system. And again, going back to the flexibility and beauty of Rev.io and SureTax is those bundles are very easy to set up, they're very easy to maintain, and they're very easy to change as time goes on. And again, when all this is set up along with traffic studies and such, we will run it through our tax lab to be sure that the results are exactly what you were expecting. So again, these are the types of things that you'd want to look back from an unbundling strategy. So for example, when you're looking at underlying carrier invoices, that's how we support the cost basis type calculation. The SaaS and ASP unbundling strategy is when we're looking at your different types of business lines. Is it a SaaS model? How are we going to break that up into the individual components? The last two, as I mentioned before, all of our unbundling strategies and optimizations and traffic study materials have been reviewed ad hoc by the jurisdictions, both state and federal, and also have been tested in audit.
So now we're going to transition to another area that has been somewhat ignored. Our industry has gone through many, many changes, and one of those changes really has been promoted widely by AT&T Apex program and leading the way, and that is bringing new, fresh carrier owners and companies into the industry. But one thing is missing in that, and that's institutional knowledge sometimes with regard to what exemptions are. And exemptions actually go two different ways. They go back to your underlying carrier to justify you not being taxed for the very thing you're collecting and remitting for. And so we've developed a suite of products inside and outside of the RBO system called LEM, which is License and Exemption Management. GSA is one of the largest telecommunications licensing corporate services company in the United States, and we have adopted new technologies with regard to managing and administering the logic, rules, the books and records, and the artifacts that defend exemption to your underlying customers. So I'd like to hand this off to Samantha for the next set of slides. Samantha?
Thank you so much, Matt. I won't reread the quote that's in front of you because I'm sure that you've all had a chance to read that, but I just want to reiterate how proud I am of GSA for what they've really brought to the market in terms of saving customers money in terms of exemptions. It is really an important part of being profitable in a business. And we're going to talk about all the ways we do that in the next few slides. So in terms of exemption management, what is it exactly? And that revolves around, who do you sell to? Do you sell to exempt customers like federal government, state government, nonprofit, and most importantly, do you have reseller relationships? If that's the case with your business model, whether it's commercial or residential that you're selling to, the exemption questions you will need to answer with 0% error in terms of audit are, what forms should these customers be providing? What tax types do these forms exempt the customers from? And this is the part, number 2, the question I just asked, where SureTax is really leading in terms of exemptions on a tax type basis, meaning for each tax type, is there a corresponding benefit that that customer should be able to enjoy because they are exempt from that tax or that fee? How do I remove those taxes correctly and in all invoices where that exemption is applicable? That's another point where SureTax has really captured the essence of exemptions and bringing it to a tax type level so that we can provide those directly through our own internal GSA OSS BSS support to make sure that those exemptions align directly with each benefit at the customer level.
So we can apply exemptions when the folks on this phone call are setting up their customer billing.
That's exactly correct, Matt. And they can tell us, this customer came to me and they said that nobody else could get it right. They couldn't seem to understand that they were exempt from state sales tax and 911 and not just state sales tax.
I often get calls from some of our customers saying, this customer of mine says they're fully exempt from all taxes and fees because they're a 501c3 or like a nonprofit. Do you hear that often?
Yes, I've been doing exemptions since 2006, and it's a common misconception by customers, especially customers who are enjoying a charitable status or a religious nonprofit status, that they are exempt from any and all taxes. But every state has different rules that apply for exempt customers, and that also applies to resellers. Although the rules are not as limited, they do exist. So it's very important that if you service any customer that is considered exempt for any reason, resell or otherwise, that you investigate on a tax type by tax type level or tax fee what they should be exempt from.
So boiling it down, if I had a multi-state tax exempt entity, each state would possibly have a different rule on whether or not they're exempted on all sales tax, state and local versus state only, based on the rules in that state, correct?
That's exactly correct. And those rules would vary even down to the jurisdiction levels in some states. So it's very important that we have that unique tax type treatment that can be treated by exemption code. There's also questions that should be answered, such as, how often do these forms need to be renewed to protect me under audit? Where should I keep the forms? If I am audited, how do I know that my forms will be accepted in good faith? And who reviews the forms and assigns the codes to the customers? What is my policy as a company on what resources are performing all of these functions? These are all questions that GSA can work with you as a customer of ours to sit down and decide for your customers, question by question, how are we going to protect ourselves under audit? Underlying carrier audits are also very important. This is where we see immediate dollar value return for our customers on a daily basis. The questions that you should be asking yourself as a carrier are, how do you ensure you are not paying taxes to your underlying service providers and collecting taxes from your end users? You should be ensuring that you're not double paying taxes. GSA can review your current underlying carrier invoices and work directly with your underlying carriers to get information that will allow us to provide real-time dollar value return to you if you're properly registered. And we will provide this on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction level in terms of exemption forms that should be provided to the carriers if it goes down to that level of specifics.
Yeah, so I see that there are 27 people who have attended this. I believe 26 are carriers. And so I hope that every one of you goes back to your level 3, your bandwidth, your AT&T Apex bill, and look and see if you have taxes or fees applied. And if you can't answer why you're paying taxes, please reach out to us. We can give you answers right away. And oftentimes actually help you recover significant dollars, right, Samantha?
That's right, and those recoveries can happen real time. As soon as we discover those and we properly issue those forms, you will see a credit that will be applied sometimes, depending on the carrier, on the actual day we submit that document.
Right. So we get oftentimes a euphoric response from our customers as soon as we get those recoveries. In fact, some have been in the tens of thousands, right, Samantha?
And we're actually going to show an example in just a few slides that was in excess of 100,000.
Yeah.
And that appeared, basically, it was like money falling from the sky. So we're just going to talk quickly about what GSA does. Once we actually review what you have in place in terms of licensing, we can issue any exemptions where properly registered. We can submit any disputes on your behalf, and we're well versed on how to do that with all the underlying carriers. We can calculate savings potential by tax type and help you to decide if the benefits are actually in place for you to do things like register for certain taxes. And this often comes into play, and we see this very frequently, where carriers are being billed taxes and or fees, and potentially the customers are not in that specific jurisdiction. And that occurs because underlying carriers sometimes have tax policies in place that don't bill in the same sequence that the carrier's tax policy says that they should be billed. We can advise on admin fees, property tax fees, and other fees, and we can also tell you our industry experience on what you can expect from your underlying carriers based on each carrier's position on those fees. We can monitor and work disputes to reduce the wait time for credits, and we can issue exemptions upon renewal prior to being charged. So that specific piece is something that we've worked a lot on in the past few months, and we're focusing on that. And Matt will talk a little bit more about a product we've recently released that has added a lot of benefit to our carriers.
Right. So I talked a minute ago about the euphoria that our customers get when they receive a big refund from Bandwidth or Level 3 or AT&T or Verizon. And it actually is something that disheartens me, because really all that is recouping money you didn't have to pay them in the first place. So before we get into this case study brief, know that GSA has developed an EDI billing receiving software that will receive your AT&T bill, your Verizon bill, your Bandwidth bill, your Level 3, and if by chance you've got some obscure carrier that doesn't support EDI, we'll take the PDF and we'll mask and map the areas where taxes and fees would apply, and then we would immediately receive those reports on a monthly basis as your bills come into us. We're essentially a service bureau, your first eyes on the bill. And so if you do not have somebody internally looking at your underlying carrier costs and billing, comparing to your contract as well as your coverage of regulatory affairs, then consider us. We're very, very cost effective in receiving those bills, and we'll run them through our system and populate a report that will either go to you to defend it yourself or come to us to immediately defend your exemption. Oftentimes, we are going right to those carriers before the bill is due to be paid and receiving confirmation that you can short pay it, and it's all documented within their accounts receivable procedures. So I'll hand it back to you, Samantha, for a quick case study.
Thank you, Matt. in front of you, you will see an example of a reverse audit that we looked at for a customer who had not issued the correct exemption support. Once we looked through all of their underlying carriers' invoices for the periods in question, we were able to recover over $100,000. And as I mentioned, that carrier was not expecting to get those dollars, so that was an amount that immediately yielded return for them on a company level. We have here, as an ending slide, just some questions that we will be happy to talk about that we thought internally would be great questions. But before we go forward with that, since we only have 15 minutes left, I believe, I will turn this over to Olivia if she has any questions for us right now.
Thank you, Samantha, Joe, and Matt. That was very worthwhile, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to join us today. As Samantha mentioned, I would like to go ahead and start the QA section of this presentation. So here's the first question. How do nomadic or VoIP and wireless services establish nexus? I'll leave it up to you all to decide who fields this question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we often get that question, and that's because the lines for nexus are often very confusing for telecom carriers. And the way in which we most often in the marketplace see that being applied is the PPU service address, the 2 out of 3, and then the third is the credit card or billing address. So those are just the methods that are accepted in order of the most accepted practice based on the federal and statutory rules around those.
Great. Here's the second question. What is your biggest recovery from optimization using unbundling and traffic study?
So this is Joe. I'll field that question. With as many clients as we have and as many optimizations we've done with Rev.io and SureTax, there are quite a few. But if I was to point out one, we recently just acquired a new client who is a Rev.io client, and our optimization, which included all of the unbundling, traffic studies, recovery fees, is yielding them a reduction in liabilities of excess of $1.5 million. So I think that's probably our biggest one that comes to mind at this point from a Rev.io perspective. So, of course, we always have to say that disclaimer. Doesn't mean you'll get the same advantage of that, but right. we have never had an optimization on the flip side that has yielded a savings for a client. There's always something there.
We've done a couple of case studies. We had a company migrate over to us from a competitor that provided compliance, regulatory affairs, and they were migrating over to Revio at the same time. They migrated to us for the compliance. We immediately did an optimization, and we were able to return, and I forget the numbers, but this was a startup VoIP carrier buying from the aggregators, and we were able to return 9% increase to their bottom line. I don't know what that number really represented. The number escapes me, but I'm sure everybody on this call, whether you're large or small, would appreciate adding 9% to your bottom line, your net income or EBITDA. And that's essentially what we can do. And this was a company that wasn't billing all that much, but they were paying it. They just happened to be another company that came to us in the last couple months and asked us to work out their exemptions and get credits, and that resulted into a $20,000 recovery.
Wow, that's incredible. For the last question, I'll let you decide who's going to field it. How can I take advantage of private carrier versus common carrier?
So I'll answer that one as well. This is Joe. I kind of get a chuckle out of that whenever clients ask me that. It seems like lately there's been a lot of flurry about that. But it's a good question. There is some advantages and opportunities there for carriers, but quite frankly, there are very few carriers who could ever take advantage of that. So generally what we like to do with our clients, this is something that we'll do for them at no cost. We'll do a review. There's a simple testing method to establish whether they can take advantage of that that status of a private carrier. So like I said, we get a lot of questions from clients. We do a lot of testing on that. And at this point, it's not an opportunity that most clients can take advantage of. But we're certainly happy to discuss that with any Rev.io customer as well.
Great. Well, we are out of time.
Yeah, Olivia, just one quick comment. If anything brought a question to mind, feel free to call us. We have a strong interest in making sure every carrier achieves the greatest profitability that they can. It makes sense for all of us because the more profitable they are, the more successful they are, the more likely they're going to expand. So please feel free to reach out to us whether you feel like you're paying too much in taxes, whether you've got good books and records from your underlying providers. We'll be happy to answer those questions in consultation before you engage us. Our goal is to get to know you, and we're happy to do so and provide some value back. So please share our information with all the attendees.
We will. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, GSA, for taking the time to present this information to everyone.
It was our pleasure.